and you are live.
Okay. Uh, Hello, everyone that's here. Uh, my name is Racine Hodo. I work in the city manager's office under Jackie Guile, and my title is Environmental Programs Coordinator. Um, I am here today to talk about the Hawkins Cove project. Uh, the Hawkins Cove project is something that's being headed up by the city of Annapolis. Uh, and with this project, as well as performing an environmental uplift of the area of Hawkins Cove, we also wanted to make sure we got input from community members, residents near the Hawkins Cove, and stakeholders interested in the project. So where is Hawkins Cove? Hawkins Cove is in Eastport. We have held, let's see, 1, 2, 3, I think 4 meetings, if not 5 meetings prior to tonight, talking about this location. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on where it's located. It's located in Eastport. It's behind the Hacka property and has trails that lead to Truxton Park. So what we did prior to us submitting an application for a grant to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation for this project, we did some public outreach on what residents of the city of Annapolis want to see at Hawkins Cove. And it could be as simple as repairing or installing a pier or installing a living shoreline, or making the area accessible for kayaks, or even making it a beach-like area. But what we're doing is we're asking for input on what people wanted to see. And what this meeting is all about is bringing all those meetings that we had prior to February, in February, and in September of this year, to pull together the feedback that we got on what people might want to see in the area of Hawkins Cove prior to the city moving toward the design for this project. So the feedback that we received is that people want to see signs installed that explain the ecological restoration that has taken place in the area, as well as the history of the area, or type of vegetation or wildlife that might be seen, as well as any kind of facts on the shoreline. People suggested that we make sure that the project focuses on the natural environment and to not include a lot of concrete or impervious area that might diminish the natural environment of Hawkins Cove. It was suggested to use a passive, nature-friendly approach to the project when we come to designing the project, making sure to put in native plants and to create bird habitat. Also, people suggested be careful about removing trees. And I think that's because you may want to make sure you're removing sick and dying trees or dangerous trees versus healthy trees. So to be cautious about removing trees in the area, and to also leave the upland area wild and preserve the habitat that's already there upstream of Hawkins Cove. Also, feedback said to people suggested making improvements to the trails The trails that are near Hawkins Cove connect to Truxton Park, and people want to see improvements there. And that might include making the trails more permeable or even widening the trails. People suggested to repair the existing pier, or maybe install, in addition to the pier, a boardwalk near the footbridge that goes to Spa Cove Apartments that's in the cove. People wanted to see upgrades to footbridges, like installing railings on footbridges to make it easier for senior citizens and people with disabilities to be able to access the area. There were suggestions of install benches for seating, picnic tables, and even a pavilion, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about the pavilion later. Our feedback included from these past meetings, to install a small playground for the children down there, down in the cove, to install receptacles for trash. But with the trash issue and the cleanliness of the area, questions came up on who would be responsible for keeping the area clean. Would it be HACA or would it be the city of Annapolis? Because part of the property is owned by HACA and part of the property is owned by the city of Annapolis. So there was a question about who's responsible for the cleanup of the area. It was suggested to dredge the cove to make the water a little bit deeper near the existing pier, while of course, fixing that pier. And then other than dredge, it was suggested not to dredge, but instead to extend the pier out over a mud flat area deeper, going out further into the water, so that you don't have to deal with dredging and that people could walk out and still have access to the water itself. Safety was an issue that came up, and people wanted us to keep in mind the safety from making the area accessible for senior citizens and people with disabilities. And one suggestion was to zigzag a walkway down to the cove to make it easier to walk down to the cove for those with disabilities or impairments. It was suggested to install automatic lights and security cameras. All of this goes to safety. And also it was suggested to make the road down to the cove to be more pervious. Also, people wanted to see that the area was ADA accessible, that the cove stays as an open public space, that the area is there were some suggestions for making the area accessible to paddle boats, but when it comes to boats, we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. There was a suggestion to install public art displays down there, to install a small swimming area that would drain to the cove, so it would be installed prior to water entering the cove, so that it would be sort of a shallow pool, and then that shallow pool would empty into the cove. There were questions that came up as far as parking to access the area, and whether there's going to be special parking, or will there be another road installed to make it the cove more accessible. The question was, what will, and this goes to safety as well, will the area be open after dark? And then of all the suggestions, the big one is that we need to manage the expectations of this project, which means that we can't make everybody happy, which is what I'm going to talk about next. There was a survey that was generated by Will Rowell back in February, and the survey asked questions of what was important to people and what was not important to people, as well as asking for input. And what came out of the survey back in February is that it was important to protect the wildlife of the area. Trail improvements were important. Installing signs that explain what's going on in the area as far as plants and wildlife and the environmental aspects of the area, making the area kid-friendly, improving water quality, which is part of what this project works toward by installing a living shoreline that water is better treated. It was important to address erosion in the area, and any erosion in the area would take sediment, would push sediment into the water, and sediment carries pollution. So this goes to water quality. And what was most important, I won't say most important, but what was very important also was to restore the natural function of the cove. What out of the survey, what came out as not important is installing fire pits or making the area accessible to boats or parking. It said lighting wasn't important. Educational activities were not important. Installation of drinking fountains and the installation of a pavilion of some kind was not important. That came out of the survey. And composting was a question that was asked and also answered that it was not important to this project. The feedback that we got.
Grayson, if I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Are the suggestions on the last slide open to change over time as we kind of work towards a project, and particularly the pavilion?
Well, what we're doing is we're taking the input that we've gotten from these various meetings that we held, and that input is going to go toward informing the design of the project. So it's not that it's not, this slide says that things are not, this was a survey. To say that something was not important to someone does not mean that it's not important to another person.
Yeah.
So what we have to keep in mind is that, in managing expectations, we're not going to be able to put everything in there that people are looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So separate from the design, there was some other feedback that came in that the city will keep in mind as we move forward with the project. But it was to include environmental experiences for children to learn more about their surroundings, or to create environmental jobs to assist in the installation of the project. Set up a program for students and water quality testing. And when looking at security and safety, to be cautious not to criminalize behavior of children that will be making use of the area. And the last piece of feedback that we got that stood out was to use minority vendors for the design and installation of the project. So basically what I've just done is I've gone over the feedback that we've gotten from a meeting it was prior to February at a Ward 8 town hall. It was February 3rd, February 11th, February 17th, and also August 23rd. To pull, what we've done is we've pulled in the feedback that we've gotten that will help us to inform the design of the final project in Hawkins Cove, keeping in mind that the environmental uplift of the area is going to be the number one sort of issue that we're addressing with maybe a living shoreline, or by planting the mud flats, or I'm not sure if dredging is necessary. But that's what this presentation is all about, is showing you the feedback that we've gotten, and showing that we've gotten, like, it shows that some people are interested in one thing and others are interested in another thing. But we're going to keep all of this in mind when we move toward the design of the project, which is the next part of this piece of this project. Anybody have any questions, comments? Diane?
Hey, Racine. Thank you for that presentation. That was really helpful. You mentioned Ward 8. Did you, you obviously had some meetings in Ward 6. How was the turnout there, and was presented reflective of those meetings?
Yeah. So the meetings that we held, I'm not sure, I did not attend the Ward 8 town hall, but the meetings that we held in February, that they were all virtual meetings, and the turnout was relatively low for those meetings. Mm-hmm. We were hoping, with some of the restrictions with COVID being raised a little bit, that we could do an in-person presentation in Ward 6 at the Eastport Community Center. And the turnout was not very high for that either, but we did get feedback while we were there.
So is there any other meetings for Ward 6 planned?
Well, I don't know how to answer that question. I'd have to check on that to let you know that. I just know that the next step that we're doing is we're moving toward design for this project. There is a timeline for the grant that we applied for and received some funding for. So there's a timeline we're trying to meet.
Right.
And so we need to move forward with the design aspect of it. Mm-hmm. But it's what we're trying to reinforce is that we've tried to make this very inclusive and very equitable as far as people having say in what they want to see down there. We're not going to be able to make everybody happy.
Right.
So, we're not going to be able to put everything that was listed in there, but it will go to how we design the area.
And then the other question I have is, does this fold into any of the Choice Neighborhood Grant application that's being worked on right now?
I don't know. I personally am not familiar with the Choice Neighborhood grants.
Both of those very soon, just quickly.
Okay. Hi, Alderman Gay.
First, I think Racine and Aaron have done a fabulous job of trying to communicate the seriousness of this project to the constituents of Ward 6 and what an opportunity it is. I first want to say that they have done the outreach, and as well as our teams that we've hired through some of the grant funding that we have, to put groups out and hand out flyers and things like that. So they've done a fabulous job there. Obviously, the turnout has not been what we've expected, but we have received communication and input as we outlined in both the virtual and in person. And some of the priorities of my constituents are, as she's laid out, obviously, number one, kid friendly. It has to be, with a neighborhood that has close to 300 individual children right now, and K through, I think, 6, they say, or something like that. That's not including high school children. So it has to be kid friendly. We've talked about the pavilion as an opportunity, just as Truxton Park has one where they can set up for birthdays and do all of those little things. And the safety was a big concern, even raised by some residents at the last meeting, particularly the night lighting and patrol in the evenings. And so, although the attendance wasn't there, there has been input. And to your point about the Choice Neighborhood Grant, I have raised that question. I have not heard back yet from HACA. I would love for it to be included in the grant because I think that it could provide additional monies for projects in the future, or it could just give us a leg up as we're in the application process now.
Mhm.
And previously, I think 11 Maryland applicants have been accepted.
Mhm.
And I think this year we're like one of 3 or something like that. So we've got a really, really good shot at that grant.
Yeah, that's what I understand. So that's great news. So yeah, hopefully it will be related in some way. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Evan White, I see your hand raised.
Yes, yes, I am a resident. I wasn't able to make the other meetings, but in the beginning of this thing, I did sit in on a meeting where this was just an idea coming about, and we were
Yes.
trying to figure out what was going to be going on. I really, really, really want to make sure that this project makes everyone feel included. There's so many things that go on throughout the city and projects like this that are curved to the wealthy, and then we are excluded. I don't care to see boats pulling up there. I care to see it more people friendly. It's a lot, like Alderman Gay said, a lot of children back here and a lot of elders who have nowhere to go. A lot of the beaches here are private. I want to see this thing forever public. It's a whole lot of waterways and things that we can't, anyone can't access because they are made to be private. The few public places we have, like under the Naval Academy Bridge on the screen, it's overrun. It's so many people because it's not a lot of public places. And I really want that to be like a focus and not see a lot of boats. You have a boat, you could pull up to slips everywhere, piers everywhere. Let's try to keep a people friendly where we like that extension could walk out on the water and actually look at it, see fish or whatever. That was my big thing in a couple of other neighbors. I don't know if they expressed that at the other meetings, but the boat thing, we don't have boats, so
Right.
I
Yeah.
think, and that there's enough places for boats to go. I don't want to see them here.
Right. Well, there are a lot of questions about this project, and when it comes to the design of the project, we'll start to get some answers for it. First of all, the cove itself is very small. So as far as boats having access, at this in its current state, boats cannot get access. It's just too sedimented. There's too much sedimentation that's taking place. So the question is whether or not the area is going to be dredged for this project. And I don't know that it will or that it won't. But I do know that dredging is extremely expensive. I know that in some of the feedback that we got that the access for boats was not an important piece of this. I think that would include kayaks and canoes. But also keeping this open as a open to the public is a very important big piece of this project. So I think we're gonna have that moving forward. The boats piece of it, I can't answer that right now. But we'll get more answers as we move forward, and we're going to continue our outreach as we go. Yeah, as it stands right now, no boats can access the area. If we don't do any dredging, but put in a living shoreline and plant the mud flats, then boats still don't really have access to the area. But it will be open to the public. Anyone else? Karen?
Just something that just occurred to me since there seems to be an interest in keeping it natural, but also making sure it's accessible to seniors and children. It just reminded me of the Baywoods senior community, that because there's a conservation easement there that they have a trail network through, which is for the senior residents that live there. And part of it is paved, but not all of it. Part of it is mulched. So it's kind of a combination of the two. So it makes like it's a good, I think it's a good way to mix that like accessibility, but also trying to keep some of it very naturalized. So it might be a good template for what could be done in this Hawkins Cove forested area here.
Okay, I'll add that to the notes of input that we have for this project, as well as Heaven's input. I will make sure that your concerns are forwarded to the team that's going to be working on the design piece of this project.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I did.
Yeah.
As far as it was something that you said with the upkeep of it, I believe, was it going to be Hacker's responsibility or the city's responsibility?
Correct.
Was
Correct. That was a concern that came up.
I don't have no cut. I'm pushing for the city. I don't know how much of an effect that my voice has, but I live in public housing. You all see the stories, you all hear it, how hard it is for us to just get regular maintenance in our homes. If you can't keep up with my inside of my house, how in the world are you gonna keep up with Hawkins Cove? You don't have enough maintenance people to change a blind or a light bulb or a battery in a smoke detector, but you want to have parts of maintaining an outdoor area. I don't see it. Truthfully, honestly, as a resident, knowing what go on here, I don't think hackers should have a part in making sure that that area is maintained until they start maintaining the inside of the homes.
Right. I hear exactly what you're saying, and I personally, I can't speak to the upkeep and maintenance of the apartments themselves. But what I can say is I hear your concern about keeping the area clean and who's responsible, especially if the city's responsible. And I'll forward this information to the team that's going to be working on this project moving forward.
Racine, do you mind if I respond to that as well?
Absolutely.
It's odd responding to my mom, but I think that your concerns, as you mentioned, are extremely valid. And so in a project like this, would I envision, and obviously we have not got to that point, but there would be some sort of partnership between the Department of Parks and Rec and HACA to maintain care of a facility like this, like we've just recently established with the basketball courts and facilities. We just got some grant money for that. And so that'll be a partnership between Parks and Recs and HACA. And so that's probably how this will work in the future. I don't want to be, put the cart before the horse, but that's probably how it will work.
Thank you.
I want to throw something out there if that's going to be the case and HACA keeping up with the upkeep. Just the idea. You know how we had the stipend program where they pay residents to clean up. I don't know how that works or where the funding comes from it, but they pay residents to clean up the buildings. It might not be a bad idea to have that same thing going as far as keeping up Hawkins Cove, making sure the trash picked up out there, changing the trash bags, cleaning up the if they get it, anything that's going to be out there that where the area been used after a birthday party or something, had a residents go back there and and do their thing and get paid to do it.
Okay, I'll list that with part of the suggestions that have come out of our meetings. It sounds like a great idea. I mean, there were suggestions on using this opportunity as a job training opportunity and using it as an opportunity to help the students in the area and the kids in the area be invested in the cove itself by helping to plant the native plants that we're talking about putting in. So I'll put that on the list of suggestions moving forward.
Thank you. I think that it would go a long way, long term.
Okay, any other questions, suggestions, or comments? Okay, the next step in this project, what we've done is we've done outreach quite a bit. COVID has been an issue for part of it at least, and I think even the second piece when we tried to do an in-person meeting, I still think people are hesitant to come together and meet in close quarters and whatnot. But moving forward, the next phase of this is going to the design of the area. And so as part of the design, what the suggestions that have been made for this area will be considered, and we'll try to incorporate, I'm sure, with the design as much as we can, while still leaving it an area that doesn't get, I guess, overused such that the natural environment is in danger. So we want to do an environmental uplift, and we want this area to be open and available, but we want it to maintain the environmental aspect of the project. So that's part of what the design is going to go to. I'm sure we're going to have additional public outreach. You have my contact information here. I will reach out and send out press releases for any additional outreach that we're going to do. As far as maybe the design of the project as we move forward.
Racine, I have a quick question. This is Diane Butler again. Who is doing the design work for the project?
A vendor has not been chosen yet.
Ah, okay. Do you know, well, okay, thanks.
Yeah, a vendor has not been chosen yet. I believe I should be better informed as far as putting out bids, but the amount of the bid would require us to put an open bid out, and we'll see what we get back as far as vendors wanting to do the project, and we'll move forward from there.
That's correct, Racine.
Who's
To
that?
just have
That's me. That's Jackie. I'm here.
I too just have a quick follow-up question. I think Diane's question was great, and I figured because of the size that it definitely would require a bid. So two-part question. Are we able to make that, when that bid goes out, can it be done in a way so that we incorporate, I know there was expressed concern from some environmental members of African American participation. I know there's a business out there. I don't know how that all works, the bidding process. But so that we meet the minority participation requirement. I know we don't officially have one on the city code, but I just like that to be a consideration. And then secondly, what nonprofit, like environmental nonprofits, are participating or will be participating afterwards? Like, I remember when I was a kid, when I first moved to Annapolis, there was like Boxerain. They taught me everything: how to swim, how to kayak. Will there be extensions like that post construction that will, I just think, contribute to the overall community in general? I think everyone wants to be an advocate for the environment, but some people just don't have the experience or access to. And so
Right.
can we take this a step further,
Right.
even during the building process, to make, as you've mentioned, with the planning and stuff, just to get the community intimately involved?
Right. So there were suggestions that I said they're outside of the design, which is the next phase of this project. This is outside of the design piece, but the city is going to keep this in mind moving forward of potentially making this area so that it includes environmental experiences for children, or create somehow maybe environmental jobs to assist with the installation of a project, or to set up a program with students. This is outside of the design, which is what we're moving forward toward. But this is something that we'll keep in mind moving forward with Hawkins Cove for a city project.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much.
Jackie, do you have any
Not sure you guys can hear me. My audio is. No, I don't have anything additional to add.
So as we move forward, we will not forget about using this project to make sure that it is inclusive and includes equity as part of the program. I think, it's the circumstances of our world now with COVID, and people working from home, and people coming together for meetings. We've been hampered a little bit, but we have gotten some good feedback from the meetings that we've held, and that feedback will be considered while we're designing the project. Is that it? Any comments or questions?
Racine, I would just like to thank you for taking the public input and putting it into this presentation, and all you're doing to make this project happen.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate you saying that. It has taken quite a team. Erica Griswold in the Community Services Office, as well as Laura Gutierrez, William Rowell, Bernice. I can't remember her last name, but Bernice is the secretary in the city manager's office, who stepped up when we needed a Spanish speaker. So it's been a team effort with Jackie. The project started out under Jackie. It's now under Public Works, but we still have input on the project. Okay. Well, this is my contact information. I'll leave that there. please feel free to call me or email me, and I will do my best to answer questions. And as we move forward, any additional outreach, I will be reaching out to you folks, and we'll take it from there, I guess.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. This is great. Looking forward to it.
I really thank you guys, because it was last minute again. All of this has, the way it's worked out, it's been last minute. I appreciate you showing up and giving input and having your questions and being interested in this project. I think this is going to be a great project for the city, and you know, open to the public, and it's going to be beautiful in the end, while we're making it an area that's more resilient to, you know, sea level rise.
Yes.
And even if we open it in February, we'll be there in my bottom trunks swimming.
All right, thanks. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, guys.
Be safe,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks again.